How's it going, everyone? We thought that we would rank some of the more music, Instagram, internet nerdy album, core albums, since we just went through and did more of the mainstream classics in the Rolling Stone list. Before getting into this video, just wanted to make sure everyone knows that these are only our opinions. We are not trying to present anything said here as facts. I know a lot of people get a little anxious when they hear people say a strong opinion and think that they believe that their thoughts on an album or a song are absolute fact. We don't think that. These are just our opinions. And our opinion is largely based on the criteria we use, where we do definitely favor depth and writing in terms of how it creates the overall artistic vision of an album, and then how the production instrumentation blends in to further that concept, those ideas, and leave an impact on the listener. I definitely prefer albums where the sound of it is pushing forward an idea, a narrative, a specific feeling, rather than just sounding pretty for the sake of sounding pretty. But that's just my perspective. If you disagree, then you might have a different looking tier list than this. But those are our thoughts, and let's kick it off.
All right, starting with
Repeater, Fugazi.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, I've heard this album. I have only heard it twice. I do like this album. I don't think that it's anything all that special, but I think that they have a fairly unique sound, and we're one of the first to sort of encapsulate that. I'm feeling, let's kick it off in the 8 tier.
8?
Yeah.
All right.
And just to cite, we generally rank things pretty harshly. So all of these are more or less all-time great albums, so they are really being compared to each other, so they can't all be 10s, or else that would really ruin the value of being a 10.
I mean, it'd be a nice looking tier list, just
It would.
one tier.
Yeah, it would be super boring.
Boom,
Yep.
done. Tier list.
Yeah,
Tens.
that's all 10s, yeah. A lot of people think that, though. A lot of people would have pretty much all these albums as 10s.
I think a lot of those people are valuing sort of place in culture, but also
Sure.
they've probably heard a lot more
They've
albums.
probably heard a lot of albums.
So
which is fair.
a 5 to someone who's listened to 200,000 albums probably looks a little different than our 5s.
Sure.
But moving on to Born to Run.
Born to Run. I adore Born to Run. It's a super consistent and concise track list. It has some of the highest points from Bruce's career: Thunder Road, Jungle Land, the title track. It's
fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's
like
great all the
Born
way
to Run a lot,
through.
yeah.
I would argue to put it in the 9 tier.
I'm fine with that. I gotta get a feel for your ratings because I'm not used to this. So I'm
It's
letting
a
you
little
talk
different.
for a little bit.
It's a little different than our anime ratings.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend a whole ton of time on each album. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Don't want to spend a whole ton of time on each album, because then this would be a 3-hour video. If I went into as much depth as I could, or not even, if I just went into a considerable level of depth for each album. Yeah.
Very fair.
So, Jane Doe Converge, I have heard this album twice. It is a metal album, so I wasn't picking up on all of the lyrics while getting through it on either listen. I did read the lyrics and delve a little bit into the concept. Just Googling them on the internet, reading a bit about what it's about. It's a really interesting listen. I definitely recommend it to you if you want some metal albums that I think that you would like. Okay. I would probably also give this a 9. I don't know. I'm between 8.5 and 9 here. Why don't we put it in 8.5 for now?
All right.
Yeah, I definitely prefer Born to Run, but I can understand this is more of a you album, so let's take it away.
So this is actually why I wanted to get a feel for your ratings.
Sure.
Because I don't really know where to put it. I do love this album. I don't think it necessarily stands up to some of the upper tier albums on this list, but
do you want to pull up some other albums that you might be a little more familiar with and get a feel?
how about we just push it over here?
Okay, let's push it down a little bit. Okay. Pavement, I have only heard this album once. This is the case for a handful of these albums. I listened to them, thought they were good, understood the value in them and why they're considered to be classics, but they aren't things that I return to really consistently. If you think that holds back my opinion and maybe I'm missing things, fair enough. I'd love to hear your perspective on some of the albums that I don't talk too much about in the comments, but I like this album for sure. I feel pretty similar to it as I do Fugazi, just in general as an album. So I'd put it right next to that.
All right.
And then what is this next one? I can't say. I'm not sure if I have heard this album.
Get a little closer.
Yeah, I have not heard this album, so we're going to put it in the... I assume you haven't either.
Nope.
Okay.
On to Bloom.
Bloom's
great.
Bloom's great. Bloom is probably one of my top 20 favorite albums, but I definitely make that distinction between favorite and best.
That's fair. I mean, it is, like you were saying, you value depth over something sounding pretty. And while this definitely does have depth, it definitely sounds pretty.
This album is gorgeous, though.
Oh, yeah.
I think that it really is sort of the epitome of the genre of dream pop, especially in its current form.
Fair.
I'm leaning towards an 8.5 tier for it. I don't know how you feel.
That's fine. I would either go that or 9, so.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm getting a feel for this list.
Yeah, we'll get a feel for it. I can definitely see myself bumping it up to 9 as we go on. Again, it's in my top 20 favorite albums. I adore it.
Yeah, Bloom's fantastic.
The next album, that's a Sinatra record, right?
It looks like it.
Yeah, I am just personally not a fan of Sinatra, so I don't really listen to his music. I'm not the type who's going to say I don't like a particular style or artist, therefore it's bad. I generally just withhold my opinion on it because I think that makes me unfit to judge it rather than fit to criticize it.
Fair.
So
I want to put it in the haven't heard?
Yeah,
Even if you
yeah.
have
I
heard
think
it?
I have heard. I think I have heard it, but I don't really have any sort of meaningful commentary.
All right.
Dummy by Portishead is fantastic. It's a great trip hop record. I hear there is the nerdy music perspective is that this is the best hip hop album of 1994.
Ah.
Yes, which
okay.
Notably has Illmatic and Ready to Die released within that year. I really fucking like this album, though. I would put it in the 9 tier. It's really sensational. It has a great sound.
Live at Folsom Prison, I believe.
Yeah, I am not a huge country fan, but this is probably one of the premier country records. And
Yeah, I like this album.
yeah, one of the ones I've heard. I would probably put this in the 8.5 tier.
I was going to say the same.
Yeah, I don't have a whole ton to say about it.
Pretty damn consistent throughout.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's a live album, which I don't
Yeah,
usually listen
yeah.
to,
But his performance is really
it
good.
does have that energy, and he
Yeah.
brings the presence, and I think that works really well to aid the album.
Yeah, he has a really strong emotional voice, too.
Absolutely.
Led Zeppelin 4. So, yeah, we grew up in a household with a family that absolutely adores Led Zeppelin. I had heard every Led Zeppelin song there is by the time I was like 8, and I have been consistently
sorry.
hearing them over and over since then. This is probably the best Led Zeppelin album, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Although,
probably.
I have some significant issues with Led Zeppelin, predominantly with their writing style. I just don't think they cover all that significant of topics.
See, I was just going to say, but we did say we value depth over sounding nice, so
I'm between a 7.5 and an 8 for Led Zeppelin 4.
I was thinking 7.5 to 7.
Okay, so I guess we'll go with the 7.5.
All right.
Yeah.
I like Stairway,
all-time
though.
classic album. Yeah, Stairway is great.
See, I like Stairway, but everything else is, hobbits and shit, sex, sometimes citrus.
Sometimes citrus, and they're not the best topics for an album, and I do think that the reason that Stairway to Heaven is as praised as it is because they sort of level up in terms of their writing. But I don't know. I do like some other songs on the album. Going to California and When the Levee Breaks in particular, I think are a bit of an advancement over general Led Zeppelin topics. So
Fair. I like When the Levee Breaks a lot.
yeah, that song is excellent. That's the contrarian pick for best song on the album.
Makes
But
sense.
I really don't like Black Dog too. Really don't like that song.
It's a little annoying.
It's a little annoying.
It's annoying.
Yeah. But yeah, let's keep going.
All right.
I have not heard. There's a Beck album, right?
Looks like it.
Yeah, I have not heard that.
Neither have I. Discovery.
Discovery's pretty sensational.
Discovery's fun.
Especially in its influence.
Yeah,
and that is
absolutely.
the thing. I don't really value influence that heavily. I really like to look for the art itself more so than what others took from it.
Fair.
The analogy I usually like to use is if you are a fantastic baseball player and you grow up playing baseball, you are a phenomenal college athlete, you're sort of the king of your school because you're so good at, or high school athlete, and you move on to college and you're not really all that special. You go into college, you do okay, but you don't really do anything career-wise with baseball. And then your son comes along one day and you teach him everything you know. He learns his baseball style from you and he grows up and plays for the Yankees. Who's better at baseball, you or your son? Obviously your son.
Fair.
So that's more or less my perspective on influence. But
The album's still good.
nonetheless, yes, the album
the
is
album's
still
still
really
good.
good. I'm leaning towards putting it in the 8 tier.
That's fine by me.
Yeah.
Demon Days.
I adore
Yeah, I knew you were getting.
Demon Days. This is an incredibly nostalgic album, and I think that the nostalgia is sort of inherent to the sound. I think that it really encapsulates a lot of the thoughts and feelings sort of the motifs
The
of
zeitgeist.
of the mid 2000s, especially in its music and the way that entertainment was beginning to shift from more of an old school way of doing things to a more electronic lens. I think that the concept of the album is fantastic. I think that the high points are all great. I'm wanting to put this in the 9 tier.
Okay.
Yeah. You were expecting me to say 9.5, weren't you?
I was expecting around there. 9.5.
Yeah.
I know you love this album.
I love that album. That album is gorgeous. Also in my top 20 favorite albums.
Fair. Now, I don't think I love this album as much as you do. Paranoid?
Yeah, I think Paranoid is excellent. I think that every single song on it is really good. I think that besides being sort of one of, if not the most landmark metal albums ever, I think it's just a damn consistently great listen. I would want to put it in the 9 tier, but if you feel lower,
I was thinking 8.5.
I'll settle on 8.5. That's fine, but
Okay.
I would probably be putting it in the 9 tier. But it would be a low 9 again. I wouldn't really consider putting it in the 9.5.
Fair. Now, I love this album.
Yeah, I've only heard this album once.
Really?
Yeah, so maybe you have better thoughts on this than I do.
This album's weird. They have like this strange energy, and they look odd. They got a weird image, and they talk about some strange things in strange ways. And I believe they've said that they just wanted to make a fun poppy album, and it just doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
But I think that they did kind of do something interesting, do something a little unique. They what's the damn song called? Do you remember Guiding Light on it? It's one of the later tracks.
Not specifically.
So they play it at one point during Mr. Robot, and that was really
Interesting.
weird. Yeah.
Okay.
In one of the flashbacks with his dad.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's like a calm song, but I like this album a lot. See, I was going to put this album where I was going to put Asia, so I was looking forward to your thoughts, so I could know the ratings that you would give.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel similarly about the two albums.
Okay, so what are you thinking?
I mean, I think it's better than Led Zeppelin 4.
Okay.
So I'm.
Do you think it's better than Discovery? I think you've heard Discovery.
That's
Or
probably.
do you think it's better than Paranoid?
It's probably around Discovery.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, I've heard it once. I don't have all that strong of thoughts around it, so I'm really just going to defer to you on that one.
Fair. I like the album a lot. Homogenic?
Homogenic. I love Homogenic. I am more of a Vespertine fan than Homogenic, but nonetheless, this is a masterpiece of an album. Bjork is maybe my favorite singer ever. She's definitely in the top 3, and this album has what might be the best 3-track run of the 90s to me, which is really a statement because some of the albums I think are the best of all time are in the 90s. But you have a run of Joga, Unravel, which is my favorite Bjork song and probably one of my favorite 3 or 4 songs based on singing in music as a whole, and then Bachelorette. That is just such a phenomenal run. Her performance is just unparalleled. I think that as an overall artist, she's certainly one of the best. This album's in the 9.5. This is the best album on the list so far to me, like pretty concretely.
I
So
listened to it once, so I don't have much objection.
Yeah, I would put that in a 9.5 tier. I love Bjork.
I actually listened to that album when I was like 14.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was like, I've heard this Bjork woman's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I was like,
She is.
that was weird.
Yeah,
I liked it though.
Yeah, I really appreciate how progressive and feminine she is and how she incorporates that into her music in a very bold way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Transformer by Lou Reed. See, I think this album is pretty good.
I don't love this album, and I really wish I did.
Yeah.
It just because it's Lou Reed. I like Velvet Underground a lot.
Sure.
I believe it's produced somehow David Bowie was involved.
Yep.
We see Lou Reed doing some weird glam things, putting on some makeup. Mm-hmm. It feels very me, and it really doesn't do much.
Which is surprising because this album really is your taste.
Yeah. And
Lou Reed is a
love it.
great songwriter in his own right, too.
I don't love this album.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good, but I would probably put it with Zeppelin.
Okay, I was going to say 7.5, 8, so
I'm fine with an 8, too.
We'll go here. I don't love it. I think that, what's it called? The big song on it. Walk on the Wild Side.
Walk on the Wild Side.
I think that's
Perfect Day are the big songs
yeah,
on it.
I think those are the standouts though. Which usually
Yeah, I would
isn't
agree.
the case.
I would agree. I generally don't gravitate towards the most popular songs on albums, like you heard with my Bjork opinion, with Unravel being my favorite song.
Yeah. But I think those are still the standouts, even though those are the ones with most pop appeal.
Sure. That's fine. I have not heard the next album. I don't know about you.
Nope.
Okay. And then we got Funkadelic by Magabrain, or Magabrain Funkadelic, whatever. Actually don't know. This is the only thing I've heard by this artist, so I don't know which one's the album title and which one's the artist title.
I'm pretty sure Funkadelic is the artist title, but I could be wrong.
I think you're right, but clearly I don't know a whole ton about the artist. But I have heard this album several times, and this album is really great, especially in its sound. It's one of the most unique and interesting sounding albums I've ever heard, and I would put it in the 9 tier and don't think I would get too much debate on that one. Album's just really great.
All right. Now here we might have some debate.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I love this album. I've been up on it lately. I think that this album is really good. I think that the way that Kanye pulls this concept together is super well done. I had a conversation with Bird's Music Log on Instagram the other day comparing this and Butterfly, and he actually made some points that I thought were really interesting in a debate that I don't see as being much of one.
Interesting.
I'm pretty high on this album. I would be between the 9 and 9.5 tier for it.
I was thinking 8.5.
Call it a 9?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the most celebrated albums of the last decade or so, and it really is that peak of accessibility and quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can play this in a random bar for girls who just joined a sorority their freshman year, and they'll still be fine with it. But it's also on this music nerds tier list here.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a great album, and I find myself criticizing it a lot just because my opinion of it is lower than the consensus opinion.
Yeah.
But it is still a great album. Sure. Just, I think that it ends kind of unsatisfyingly.
Yeah.
So
we get some really interesting albums coming up now. This is Exile on Main Street, right?
Yeah, really interesting album.
It's interesting because I really don't like the Rolling Stones. I think that they are incredibly overrated. I think that they had a lot of mainstream appeal and accessibility. They were just stripped down rock at the time. I guess they probably were offensive at the time, but listening to them now, it just sounds so dated, and there's nothing really special about their writing or the feeling in their music that can prop them up for me. This is pretty easily the worst album so far, so I would put it in the 7 and below tier.
All right.
Not a fan of the Rolling Stones. I'm sorry if I have any major Stones fans listening, but
You probably don't.
I probably don't.
Glow Part 2. I love this album, personally.
I love this album, too. I think this album's really good. My only problems with it are it peaks in the first 3 tracks, which are the best 3 songs on the album.
Yeah, it does.
I really like I Felt Your Shape later on the album, but it falls off, and then after finishing those 3 tracks, I'm not really getting the same feeling. And while I think the story with Phil sort of going into the woods in this way of connecting with nature to get over this feeling of loss is interesting, I don't know if I think it was executed to the best of how it could have been done. And then especially seeing it compared to Aeroplane all the time, I understand this comparison from a sound perspective, but Aeroplane is light years better writing wise. I don't think it's anywhere close to a contest. I think that Aeroplane accomplishes more in the first half than this album does in its whole run.
I mean, personally, I think that Aeroplane's sound is better. Maybe
I
its
do
guitar
too.
work
Yeah.
isn't as good.
I think that Phil may be a technically better singer, but Jeff has far more passion and emotionality in his voice. I would lean towards putting this in the 9 tier, though. I do still think this is an amazing record.
I was thinking 9, 9.5. So if you want to go 9, that's fine.
I'm leaning more towards 9, although it might be the best album in the 9 tier so far. I'm worried that there's going to be a lot more albums that I think deserve the 9.5 more so.
Okay.
But we can go back and reevaluate if that doesn't end up being the case. Elvis Costello, I don't think I've heard this album, to be honest.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
But on the tracks.
So I'm a huge Dylan fan. He's probably my favorite artist of all time. But I'm a little down on this album. This is not one of my favorite Dylan albums, even though it is definitely one of his most celebrated. Tangled Up in Blue, the first song on the album, is one of my top 5 favorite songs of all time. I I adore that song to no end. It has a lot of meaning to me personally, but it's sort of similar to Glow Part 2. Once I finish that song, I'm not really as excited for the rest of the album. And I think that it's pretty similar in quality to the Glow Part 2. So I would want to put it in the 9 tier.
All right. It cock.
Yeah, so In the Court of the Crimson King is really good. I think that it's a little inconsistent, but my caveat with that is the 2 songs that I don't think are as great are much shorter than the songs that I think are better.
Yeah, I was actually listening to it the other day, and I don't think it's as inconsistent as I once thought.
Yeah.
I think
I'm a fan of this album.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, I think Epitaph
is great.
Epitaph
is
is amazing. It's the best King Crimson song overall. I know that the hardcore King Crimson fan wants to say Starless.
It's the best song of the 60s, Mark.
I don't know if I think that, but I can appreciate that opinion. I will let you pick between 9 and 9.5.
Oh, you put it on me.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on you.
I'm feeling 9.5. Maybe we'll lower it later.
Sure.
But I'm feeling 9.5. That's an excellent album.
It is excellent.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Also an excellent album. A lot of criticism on this album directly related to In the Court of the Crimson King, where people say that Pink Floyd just took all of their musical ideas and perspectives and popularized them and made it more accessible, which is true to an extent, but I think that Pink Floyd is less progressive. I think that is their intent. I think that they are incorporate a lot of psychedelic and progressive elements, but I don't think that this is meant to be that progressive of a record, which is the criticism I hear the most for it.
Which is just kind of a dumb criticism.
Yeah, because it's not a genre that it might be in a label doesn't mean the music's bad.
Yeah.
I think that this album's really good. I love it all the way through. I think it's super consistent, and I think it's the best Pink Floyd album, which I know is nowadays an unpopular opinion, but it's only because the album's so goddamn popular that people want to hate on it. I think it's the second best-selling album of all time.
Something like that. I think I'm back on the Wall wave, which I know if it shows up, you will have some disagreement on.
I'd probably put them both in the same tier. I think all of the sort of flagship Pink Floyd albums are pretty close, and I would put them all in the 9 tier.
Fair.
So that's what I'm feeling here. Pink Flag, Wire. I've heard this album once. I don't have a whole lot of concrete feelings. I listened to the album, read the lyrics, thought it had some interesting ideas on it, but it wasn't anything that really blew me away or made me come back to it. Feeling an 8. But again, I'm not the most knowledgeable on this album, so if that opinion is something you violently disagree with, then fair enough.
Fair.
Pink by Boris. I've heard some Boris work, but not this album.
Okay.
So, move on from there. I have not heard Entertainment either. I have not heard this Blur album. And now we're back to Asha.
Okay, so I will be putting in the 8 tier, because I said I'd put it in the same place as Marky Moon.
Sure.
I think if I did value production more than I do, I would have this album higher, because it is flawless in terms of that. And I think Steely
really good,
Dan is always
Walter Becker and Donald Fagen.
Yeah.
I think they're great musicians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that they are like perfectionists.
Yeah.
This is sort of like they're the band to listen to when you're like having nice speakers and you're like a big audiophile, and I think they have a lot of detail that comes through when you have those.
I would argue that the next album might be a little better of a pick, but
that's fair. I was more so saying what's in the common consensus.
Sure.
Like if you go to like the audiophile playlist on Spotify, you'll find some Steely Dan. But I think this album is probably their strongest conceptually. I think especially Deacon Blues, this idea where it's like looking at the winners of the world and having some sort of spite, but also just like wallowing in self-pity is fairly interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate the album. It's a fun listen.
It's a good listen. I love the album. I love Steely Dan, but
I would agree with your 8 placement too.
Yeah,
if I had to make a decision, that's where I would.
Yeah, when I'm not really thinking super critically, I definitely will throw this album on, but I don't think it necessarily stands up against all these other albums.
Sure.
I mean, I'd probably put it over Paranoid, but I know you don't, and that was a compromise album.
Sure.
Skinny Fists.
So I did at one point have this album as a 10 when I had 5 of those. So I still think extremely highly of this. It's probably the best sounding album ever made, in my opinion, just from a purely sound perspective. but it has a ton of really interesting ideas on it. I wrote a review on the Rap Thought World channel that I would urge anyone to check out if you want to hear a little bit more about the story of this album, because there very much is one, even though it's predominantly instrumentals. Album is amazing. It's close to a 10 for me, but not quite. So I would want to put it in the 9.5 tier if you don't have any objection to that.
I have no objections to that.
I think it's the best. I think it's the best album we've covered so far, though.
I think that's fair. The sermon in Static always blows me away.
Oh,
it will never fail to blow me away.
Yeah, it is one. It's one of the best moments in music for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know what the next album is.
Okay.
I don't even. Yeah. Graceland by Paul Simon. I listened to this fairly recently, seeing Bird's Music Log and Better Call Zach on Instagram praising it a lot, and I think it was really good. I really like the album a lot. Paul Simon's a really good writer. Probably my favorite Simon and Garfunkel related project. I would put it as an 8.5 personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know what the next album is.
Soundtracks for the Blind. So
Yeah.
I listened to. So I'm going to withhold my opinion on this album because I listened to it when I was 12, and I said,
Yeah.
"This is weird," and I
Yeah.
turned it off.
That's still a pretty reasonable perspective at this point, to be honest. This album is really an experience. It is extremely long and goes through a lot of different ideas and presents the world in this really dark way. Especially if you talk about like Helpless Child, sort of looking at the world from the perspective of an unborn fetus, from a alcoholic, drug addicted mother. And
Isn't that like the concept of the title too? From what I've heard?
that is a lot of what the album deals with. That, Animus are sort of the defining tracks. I believe the song is Volcano, which has this unsettling pop sound to it. It almost sounds like a pop song out of a horror movie.
Interesting.
It is a really weird listen, but it is sort of the crown jewel of Swans, which are, in most people who love a lot of the albums on this list, the best band ever. I don't really think so, but I can absolutely appreciate that opinion. They have a 30-year career of great albums, and this is their crown jewel. I would have to put it in a 9.5 tier, if anything, just out of respect for what it does.
Now, I don't know if we have disagreement, but I love this album.
I think this is the best David Bowie album.
I agree.
And David Bowie is one of the best artists to ever live.
I'm feeling 9.5.
I was also going to say 9.5.
Okay.
This album is amazing conceptually. Bowie gives a
Fantastic
godly performance. Yeah. His voice is phenomenal. Every instrument is great, although I think there are some rough around the edges points with it.
I don't love the mixing. That's really my biggest criticism of the album.
Sure. But
sometimes it's interesting when we get these albums that have so much mainstream appeal.
Yeah.
Where I think this one really aids it.
Yeah.
And I think the relationship to the audience that he conveys with this Ziggy Stardust character, who is a rock star, I think then lends itself to working really well with having these nice sing-along songs.
Yeah.
And I think that is fantastic. What comes across in the album, everything.
Yeah.
Great.
Sure. Yeah, in the aeroplane over the sea.
I'm feeling a 7.5 on this one.
Yeah. So if you followed me at all, you know that I think that this is the best album ever made. On my story the other day, I made the comparison that I feel about this album similarly to how I'd feel if you took LeBron James and put him into college basketball at the moment and then asked who's the best college basketball player. I think that it has the most emotionally engaging and expressive concept, in my opinion, probably in all of art. I can't even really talk about this album without just sounding like a complete fanboy. I think that everything on it is done to perfection. I think that it tackles maybe the most important idea in life, just whether it's worth living, whether you should kill yourself or not, in the most profound way I could ever imagine. It's the best album of all time, in my opinion, and most people listening to this probably knew that already, so it's a 10.
But 10s don't exist, so we're going to put it in the 9.5 tier. Nothing can be perfect, Mark.
Yeah, but it is, nonetheless.
Hey.
It's a 10, and I don't really see anything ever overtaking it for me. Right. I hope someday that something does. That would be great, but I doubt it.
You mean a piece of art or an album?
An album.
Okay.
Yeah. Daydream Nation by Sonic Youth. I love this album. I've been listening to it a lot lately. I think that it is super well done, and it's so fun while being incredibly well written. I really adore this album. I would give it a 9.
All right. Revolver.
Revolver is my favorite Beatles album. I don't think it's necessarily the best Beatles album, but it brings up my larger issues with the Beatles as a band, although I love them as a band. They're in my top 10 favorite bands for sure. I know every word to every single one of their songs, but their writing is just gibberish a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
They just write about complete nonsense. I know they claim to not write on acid because they think the music comes out like shit, but I don't know. I still am feeling an 8 on Revolver. I think it has some of the best moments from the Beatles in their catalog.
I was also going to say 8.
Oh, you thought I was going to go higher?
Yep, I love this album as well. I think.
Actually, no, you know what? I probably would amend that and say 8.5, but I'll leave it an 8 if you're more comfortable with that.
Whatever works. I mean, I do love the album, so
Yeah,
I'm not going to complain.
I think it's better than what we have in the 8 tier. I would want to push it up to 8.5.
That's fine. I like Revolver a lot. I think For No One is pretty fantastic.
For No One, and
I like She Said, She Said.
I do too, and it's the most popular song on the album, and I'm forgetting the freaking name of it somehow.
Eleanor
Rigby. Yeah, but I think that is probably a top 5 Beatles song in my opinion. I think that it sounds absolutely incredible, and I think the story behind it is really strong as well.
Fair. Is Love You Too on this album? I'm struggling to remember.
Yes it is.
That song's weird, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
This song has a lot of weird ideas on it. It's sort of like Merriweather Post Pavilion is the comparison I like to make, but 40 years beforehand, which is pretty cool. Not that I think that makes it necessarily better, but
yeah,
cool.
London Calling.
I'll let you talk about this since I know you're much more familiar with this album than I am.
I mean, I love this album. The problem with it is just it's too damn long. I do appreciate that they cover a ton of different ideas and different sounds on this album, but some of the tracks are just weaker than other tracks. I think that if it was half the length and I could pick my favorite half of the album, have it be one album, I'd have it pretty high. But it does get dragged down.
Yeah.
It's a little tough. But the energy they bring, especially in like the title track, they sound like a little bit ahead of their time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the title track definitely sounds ahead of its time. I remember the first time I heard it and thinking that it was significantly newer than it was.
But then tracks like Spanish Bombs or Lost in the Supermarket are kind of conceptual standouts. I think Clamp Down is probably my favorite song on the album. Fair. I think it really represents what the album's about and that sort of punk rock energy.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I'm feeling between 8 and 8.5. So I'll let you decide from there.
I'm right with the 8.5.
All right.
Yeah,
let's
I
give
really
it
like
the
this
8.5.
album. Yeah,
this album's
let's give it the 8.5.
It's fun.
Yeah. I have not heard the next album.
Neither have I.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
And then we get to talk about Remain in Light.
Remain in Light. Let's go.
Yeah, so we have a whole choreographed dance to Born Under Punches.
Because it's the best song of all
It
time.
is. It's great.
This is probably the best produced album of all time.
That might be the best produced song ever, too, in my opinion. It's up there. Maybe not number one, but
this album?
This album?
This is
the most ahead of its time album ever.
Yeah.
This album sounds like it came out in 2030.
Yeah.
This album is great. All the writing on it is pretty good too.
Yeah,
I love this album to pieces. I would say 9.5.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I like how in this album they sort of took a turn with their writing and they have it's a little weirder. It's a little more like piecemeal. They're more representative. They're not necessarily they're not as explicit, but I think it does work and he gives such a performance that it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I think?
Nope, that is Person Pitch by Panda Bear, who is one of the members of Animal Collective.
All right. It is small.
I listened to this album for the first time yesterday.
All right. For this list?
Yeah. Nice. Kyle had always heavily recommended it to me, said it would be something I really like. Okay. No, not for this list, just in general. And I really liked it.
Fair.
I think it was probably the second or third, my second or third favorite from the Avery Terran and Panda Bear works. The sound was really unique and special. It sounds like Animal Collective. I don't really know how else to put it other than that. But the writing was really good and sort of this idea of defining the sound of a person.
Interesting.
And it culminates towards the end. We get Search for Delicious and Ponytail, I believe, which were both great. The whole album was pretty strong all the way through. At the moment, I'm feeling an 8.5, but again, that was my first listen yesterday, so I could see myself coming up on this record. I bet if I understood it and was able to feel it a little more, then I would go towards 9.
Okay.
Siamese Dream is a great album. Probably my favorite by them.
Prefer it to Melancholy?
I don't know. It's a toss-up. That's one of the bands where choosing their best album is pretty tough.
Well, those are usually the top 2 that I hear.
Yeah, I would go 8.5 on this album.
All right.
I can't see. I can't see what this is. But
I
I don't recognize it. No, it's okay. I don't recognize it. I think we can just move forward.
All right.
And talk about
G'day?
G'day. We'll talk about the two
Radiohead albums?
The 2 Radiohead albums here. I know that you like Kid A less than me.
Yes.
You like Kid A less than me, but do you want to just talk about Kid A and OK Computer at the same time?
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, I'd put them in the same tier. So.
I would put them in the same tier too. Okay, so I think we know what tier that'll be, but these are groundbreaking and sensational albums. I adore them. They would both have a good chance to land themselves in my top 20 albums overall. It is incredible that a band was able to release works like this back to back. They're so ahead of their time in terms of thinking about the world, the state of the world that we live in. Kid A is very reflective of ideas in like Orwell's 1984, while OK Computer has this sort of Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell sort of aesthetic. It's almost like a cyberpunk album in how it's predicting this dystopian future that ends up coming to light in Kid A.
I do think that is one of the more interesting things about viewing these albums together, where it's like, OK Computer says, this is coming, we need to stop this, and Kid A says, this
slow
is
down.
Here.
Yeah, Kid A says, no, we're already in this, and it's bad.
Yeah.
Kid A is really bleak, but it is...
It has such a good atmosphere.
It does. One of, if not the best atmospheres in music. Both of these albums are 9.5 to me.
I have no objections.
And they have now gotten to the point where if you look at any sort of aggregate music ranking site on the internet, those will probably be the top 2 in terms of all of music because they're that praised on the internet.
Yeah.
Tommy by The Who. Tommy's great. It's a rock opera that has a lot of cool ideas and a cool story. I think that Who is a really good band and one of the best classic rock bands. I would lean 8.5, 9 on this. I don't know. Have you heard this album?
I have not. I've only heard Who's Next.
Yeah.
Which one you want?
I think I'm feeling 8.5. I think the sound on most of the albums in the 9 tier are a little better. Yeah. So okay. So Laughing Stock. I've been listening to Laughing Stock pretty much constantly over the past week. I think that this album is beautiful. It's tear-jerking. I think that Mark Hollis is one of the best singers of all time. If I made a top singers list, he would be in my top 5. I think that the writing on this is really otherworldly. I think it was Zach say that this album escapes music and looks to do something different. And I can appreciate that sentiment. This album really goes above and beyond in every single way, and the concept is so interesting and well written. I think it's a similar concept to Aeroplane, not quite as well done in my estimation, but I am feeling the same tier, and I want to put this in a 10 tier.
Well, you heard it here first.
Yeah, you
heard it here first. The new Rap Thought World 10.
Yeah.
The 10. Babe, wake up. New Rap Thought World 10. Yo.
Yeah, feeling a 10 on Laughing Stock. Album is it's just orgasmic, honestly.
That's not how I describe it.
That's the descriptor we're going to use.
All right.
It's crushing, but it is amazing. I have no idea what the next album is.
Tears is Lube,
It just has Lego people in it.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I just don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know what this album is, but I have
Blue
no
album.
idea. Blue album.
Blue album's fun.
Blue album's fun. I think that... Yeah,
like
it has its time and its place. I don't think it's all that amazing of an album, but
yeah, I'm feeling
it's good.
7.5, 8.
I feel like I was gonna say either a 7 or a 7.5.
Okay.
I wouldn't. I would probably put it. I would put in a 7 and below tier. I do think it's a 7. I don't think it's an and below, but the album's definitely more fun than it is good.
Yeah.
I don't know what the next album is.
Neither do I. Pet Sounds.
Oh, yes. Now I get to receive a ton of hate.
Let's go. This album's inconsistent.
This album's really inconsistent. It was revolutionary in terms of pushing forward the sound of music overall. It has a lot of interesting and unique ideas. God Only Knows is one of the all-time great love ballads, but the album as a whole doesn't do a whole ton for me.
I mean, I think Love Ballad is underselling it a little bit because it is a little more unique.
It is a little more than that. Well, that's why it's one of
Yeah.
the all-time greats, is because it's not just a generic one. But yeah, I don't love Pet Sounds. I don't really see in it what everyone else seems to, and I'm sure I'll get zero positive feedback for it, but I'm leaning in the 8 tier.
Okay, so now maybe I'll get more hate than you. I'll draw the hate away from you.
Okay,
I
thanks,
kind of
Scott.
think all the praise that this gets in sort of this core
Yeah, type
community
of... Yeah.
is just like the overwhelming sense of contrarianism. Because it's always compared to Sgt. Pepper's. Sgt. Pepper's just is better.
It is
Brian
better.
Wilson agrees
It
that
is
Sgt.
better.
Pepper's is
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
it's just better in every way.
They were having a competition of who
Yeah.
could make the better album, and
Yeah.
all parties involved knew that the Beatles won.
Yeah, and I kind of think that anyone who says that this is better just doesn't want to say that Sgt. Pepper's, the most acclaimed album of all time, is better. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe,
I mean,
okay, now
you probably will get a little
I'm
bit of
gonna
hate
take the
for
hate.
that.
I'm
That's-
taking the hate from
well,
you.
thanks for taking it from
I'm
me.
taking the hate. I'm fine with 8. I was going to say 7.5 to 8.
Okay, let's leave it an 8.
All right.
Astral Weeks is a sensational album. I don't think that I understand every bit of his writing intricacy on here, and there is intricacy on here, but he's got an amazing voice. He's got some really well done lyrics on this thing. I'm feeling a 9 on it, and with further listens, I can see myself thinking of it even higher.
All right.
Cool. James Brown. I don't listen to a whole ton of James Brown. I guess I'm not a great hip-hop historian in terms of the roots that led into the genre, but I haven't heard this album.
Neither
I
have I.
don't think. Yeah.
Doolittle.
Yeah, my problem with Doolittle is it is in my top 5 favorite albums ever. I adore it to no end. I kind of wish that all of rock music just sounded like Doolittle, to be honest. It just sounds so goddamn good to me. But I really do believe that just sounding good to me is not all I should be considering in making a list like this, because what sounds good to me doesn't translate to anyone else.
Fair.
I don't really know where to put this. I have such a hard time being unbiased. Like, I almost want to make a separate tier, just call it the Doolittle tier, because I just can't. I can't talk about this album in a sort of critical way.
See, I mean,
I just don't know how. I'm fine with deferring to you, but I love this album too much to rate it where I think it probably should be rated. Because I think a lot of this album is complete nonsense.
I think a lot of the album is nonsense, but I think a good amount of it isn't. I think
Hey is probably one of the best songs of the 80s.
I think
that it
Hey
is
is
a phenomenal
fantastic.
song.
I think like Monkey Gone to Heaven has
Fantastic.
a pretty solid concept behind it. I
Even
think
even Debaser. I love Tame for whatever weird reason. I think that
Tame's
it
weird.
fits the aesthetic of the album so well, and it pushes forward what they're trying to do in terms of sort of the vibe.
I think those first 3 tracks are an excellent, or even first 4 tracks are an excellent introduction.
Yeah.
Has that energy. I think it. I don't know. I don't think it's complete nonsense. I'm not fully sure if I'd say it's some masterpiece or anything.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I kind of want to give it a 9. I may be being a little biased there.
I was gonna say 8 and 8.5. Do you want to call it an 8.5, or do you
call it
really want to put it in the 9?
No, we can call it an 8.5. It hurts my heart a little bit because I like this album more than any album on here so far besides one.
Fair.
Pink
Pink
Moon.
Moon. This is. I've heard this once. It's just crushing.
This is a crushing listen. I don't know if I want to give this a 9 or a 9.5.
I was around there too.
Yeah.
This is a tough listen.
It's so goddamn good.
It is good.
The thing is,
It's tough.
I do sort of think it's better than all of our 9s, or it would definitely be at least on the upper tier. I kind of want to give it a 9.5.
That's fine.
That album, it really accomplishes what it's setting out to do really well.
I mean,
and especially knowing his story, especially with his life coming to a end through his own doing shortly afterwards. It's an effective listen, no doubt.
It's rough.
But, is this what I think it is? I don't want to speak wrong. I think this is after Yeah, this is after the Gold Rush by Neil Young. That's what I thought. Yeah, so I can't identify it by the title, which tells you that or by the cover, which tells you that I don't listen to this album a whole ton. I have heard it. I like Neil Young. I can appreciate what he does. I think he's a good writer. His voice, it can fit a time and place, but I don't think that it's overwhelmingly sensational by any means. I would feel an 8 on this album, but again, I've only heard it once or twice, so don't take that as gospel by any means.
So I'm going to defer to you on this one because I don't know how to rate this.
Yeah, so Since I Left You, I think is...
I love the album.
I think to call it the most creative sounding album of all time would be pretty fair.
Fair enough.
I think that this album is gorgeous to listen to all the way through. I think that it's really pushing the envelope in terms of what music can be. We talk about
While still sounding good. I feel like a lot of the
Yeah.
albums that are described as pushing the boundary of what music can be kind of sound a little off. But this is...
I think I see Trout Mask Replica on here, so we'll get to pushing the
Yeah.
barriers of music in what I think is a negative way.
Yeah.
I just adore this album. I would be between a 9 and a 9.5 on this.
Okay, I don't know how to rate because we were saying we value depth and stuff, and I don't really know.
Yeah,
I think
I
there
don't
is
know.
a little bit of depth on
I think
tracks
there's-
like Frontier Psychologist.
Sure, I think there is a little. I think there is a little bit of depth, but I think where it lacks in depth, it makes up for in creativity of its sound and effective use of the medium, which is something that I know that we both value. I think that this uses the medium of music to be a piece of art better than most, if not all.
Fair enough. See, it's weird because I like this album more than Donuts, but I feel like I'd rate Donuts higher.
I probably wouldn't. I can understand why someone would rate Donuts higher, but I definitely think that this album is much better produced, which is the
Fair
core appeal of those albums. And,
Fair. Which one did you say?
I don't know. What do you think? I'm between 9 and 9.5, and I don't really know where to land it.
I mean, I'd probably say 9. I'd probably lean 9 because of the lack of depth. But I'm not gonna be mad about a 9.5 because
I do kind of think I want to go for the 9.5. If you really want to go 9, that's fine. But I think that, yeah, and then it sort of diversifies our 9.5 picks a little bit too, which is good.
Disintegration.
So I've heard Disintegration 3 times in my life all the way through.
I love Disintegration.
So I'm gonna defer to you on this one.
I mean, I can understand not really getting into this album if this isn't like really your taste because there are a lot of long drawn out instrumentals. And I get the comparison with the Smiths. I get it all. But it's still fucking great. I mean, tracks like Pictures of You, I know that's the super popular one, is like kind of, it's something weird. Like, it's not soul crushing like Pink Moon, but like, it's sad.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting sad. It's something that everyone can relate to. I like the album a lot. I really love Fascination Street coming in at the second half of the album, which is such a weird sound. I think they have a great sound. They have a great aesthetic. I'd feel, I mean, if we put Doolittle an 8.5, I'd feel an 8.5.
Sure. Yeah, I can appreciate that. I was gonna say 8 or 8.5 based on my listens, but I don't have a intimate knowledge of the album by any means. I will say, just looking at what we have done and what to go through, I think we should pick up our pace a little bit in terms of making this video not 3 hours.
All right, let's do it.
So records like the next one, Leonard Cohen, Songs of Love and Hate. I really like this album. I think it's super well written, but I don't listen to it that often. It's not something that's all that special to me personally. I would lean towards giving it an 8.5.
Okay.
But I don't have much more to say, and I think that on records like this, where I don't have that deep of a connection to it or anything insightful to say other than that I think things are well done, I'm going to keep it to that level of brevity.
Fair. Thank you. You could even be more brief if you'd like.
Sure. Smile. Have you heard this?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm not the biggest Brian Wilson fan. I do think this album is good. However, I would want to give it an 8.
Okay.
Cocteau Twins, Heaven in Las Vegas. I remember I was trying to dig into more really strong women artists at one point.
Fair.
And I do think that the music industry can be a little sexist in terms of where they position women, especially historically.
Yeah,
less so in recent times. And
it still does persist.
It definitely persists. I think that a lot of women can be shoved into pop star roles where sex appeal has a significant piece of their
Marketing.
their marketing, which I'm not a fan of. I really, really love the female voice and the emotional perspective that is presented on a lot of the best albums made by women that I've heard. I think that this is one of them.
Fair.
I really, really enjoy this album all the way through. It has a great and unique sound. I think this is something that you'd really like if you were looking for more albums to listen to, Scott.
Okay.
So I would give this a 9.
All right.
Hot Rats by Frank Zappa. I spent a day at work once listening to this pretty much all day. It's really interesting. It's like jazz fusion type of sound. It is predominantly instrumental. If I'm not wrong, I think only one of the songs in this album has much in terms of lyrics, which is a drawback for me, but it remains my favorite Frank Zappa album.
Fair.
But again, I'm not the biggest fan of Frank Zappa. I think that a lot of his appeal comes from pushing the boundaries of music more so than being that amazing of an artist in terms of what the music itself is. But still, I would give this an 8.
All right.
Rain Dogs. This is a music nerd's best friend. A lot of people consider Tom Waits to be one of, if not the best songwriters ever. I don't like this album. I don't like Tom Waits. I don't like his sound, but I think that that's just me. I think it's just that I personally don't like it. And instead of speaking negatively on it and criticizing it, I lean more towards wanting to withhold my opinion. I don't want to put in haven't heard because
You have heard it.
I've heard it at least 10 times.
Okay.
I've heard this album many times. I am trying to find the appeal in it. I just can't. I would want to just put this at the bottom and just not really.
Right
No. Just the bottom of the yes.
Okay. Right.
Because I don't have anything constructive to say about it. It's just that it's not in my taste, and I don't think that that's a strong criticism for an album.
Fair.
So, Aphex Twin. Yeah, I think that this album is really beautiful, really well made. It doesn't fit my particular taste again that well in terms of creating this emotionally strong concept or compelling ideas all that much, but I still think it is a really great record, and I would want to give it an 8.5.
All right.
I don't know what this next album is.
Cool. Highway 61.
Yeah, so Highway 61 is my second favorite Bob Dylan album. I don't think it's the most consistent listen all the way through, to be honest. And I don't think that it's covering sort of an overarching concept that can make up for some of those inconsistencies. So, again, he is my favorite artist, but I want to be fair with him. I think that Like a Rolling Stone, Ballad of a Thin Man, and Desolation Row are top-tier Dylan songs and some of the best songs of the era. I want to give this a 9 and not a 9.5, unless you feel strongly differently.
I don't. I love Desolation Row.
Yeah.
So much. I agree with you.
Yeah, okay, sure. But again, still one of my favorite albums of all time. I don't think that I could justify giving it a significantly higher score.
Fair.
I have not heard this next record.
Cool.
Okay. I have not heard the record after it either.
Cool. Who's next?
Who's Next? Who's Next is great.
Yeah, I love Who's Next.
While I might think Tommy is better, I think that they're pretty comparable, and I would want to put them in the same tier.
Works for me.
Cool. I think that it's an incredibly accessible album, and it is maybe not the pinnacle, but pretty close to it in terms of what mainstream 60s, 70s era rock represents.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Patti Smith Horses, really damn good album. I would want to give it an 8.5. I don't listen to all that consistently. Don't have a whole ton to say, but I've heard it a few times and think that it was a strong listen. So,
Fair.
Spirit, they're gone. Spirit, they vanished. This is, and again, I really want to make the differentiation between favorite and best here. Not my favorite Animal Collective album, which belongs to Feels by a landslide. I adore Feels, but this is the best Animal Collective album. It is grating on the ears. It has this static that resonates and is... Have you ever listened to any of this?
I've not.
Okay.
I've only heard Merriweather.
Okay, you should definitely listen to this. This is one of the most unique listens you will ever hear.
Interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if you listen to this album and tell me it was the most unique album you've ever heard. I can understand someone turning this on, immediately saying, what the fuck, and hating it. But I think this album is incredible. I think that Alvin Rowe is the best Animal Collective song and one of the best coming of age type stories that I've heard.
Interesting.
I would give this a 9.5.
Okay.
Oh, we get two back-to-back amazing
We
records.
get the best album of all time.
Yeah.
So I heard this album for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and I really don't get it. So I'm gonna defer to you on the opinion, but I love the album so much.
Yeah. So he is, in my estimation, the deepest and most powerful reflection of human connections and self-identity in music, and one of the strongest in all of art. I think that this is I can't even come up with a good enough adjective. I think that this is a
Transcendental.
transcendental, euphoric experience to listen to. I think Joanna's voice can be a little difficult to get into, and this is a chamber folk harp-based album, so it's definitely not for everybody, but it is, in terms of pure technical writing, this is the best written album ever. Only Skin is, at the moment, top 3 song ever made.
Probably the best song I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I don't get it, but it's probably the best song I've ever heard.
What really happens with this record is all of the album centers around that song, and every song is this little stream that's flowing into the greater river that is Only Skin, which is this dissection and sense of coming to terms with who she is as a person, what womanhood means to her, the value of personal connections, and making a decision on this love in her life and whether it's worth it or not. And the greater question of, is love worth it? This is the second best album of all time, in my opinion. So easily a 10. Once I came to understand this record, I knew that it was a 10 and would always be a 10 for me. This album is unbelievably good. Okay. Red by King Crimson. That's what that is, right? Yeah. Really liked this album, not as much as In the Court of the Crimson King. I know that most people who are fans of both tend to say that Red is actually their best album, and that people only think In the Court of the Crimson King is better because they haven't heard Red. I have heard Red several times. I know that Starless is the pick for best King Crimson fan by their most hardcore fans, and that is fair. I think that Starless is better than every song on In the Court of the Crimson King besides Epitaph, which I think is their best song. I really like this album a lot. I would give it a 9.
All right.
Okay, what is this next album? I don't think I've heard this.
Neither have I. Now we have a problem. Because I don't think either of us love this album.
No.
Like, it's good.
Yeah, it's good. I am not a huge Sufjan Stevens fan. I'm not. I think that other artists do everything that he's trying to do better. I know a lot of people swear and die by him, but he's not my favorite.
Yeah, I listened to this album once and I was like, yeah, I can appreciate some of the writing. I was reading the lyrics along with it. I'm like, yeah, I can appreciate some of this, but this is not something I'm going to really throw on again for fun.
Yeah.
Not even for fun, but just because, for whatever
reason. I think that he's a really interesting storyteller. I think the way that he's creating the identity of Illinois as a city, or as a, whatever, you know what I mean, as a state, is super compelling. As a John Wayne Gacy Jr.,
no,
that tends to be the standout, which is a fantastic song.
Fair.
I think he's probably one of the better songwriters, just in general in music, but not in my top 10, more of a top 20 or 30 in my estimation.
Casimir Pulaski.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. One of the other standouts from the album. I don't like this album as much as everybody else. I know that this is one of the most praised albums in music overall. I would give it an 8.5, though.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'd give it an 8.5. I haven't heard the next album.
Sound of Silver?
Have you heard this album in its entirety? I know that you've heard All My Friends, but have you heard...
I've heard this album once. Okay. I think that All My Friends and New York, I Love You, But You're Bringing Me Down are the best two standouts to me.
Those are the best two songs.
The other songs didn't necessarily stick with me.
Sure. I did find some of the album to be a little boring, to be completely honest, but I think it has some really strong high points, great aesthetic. I love the performance on it. I would give it an 8.5.
All right. I have no problem with that.
And then what do we have next? Is that... No, what is it? I don't know what this next album is. Oh, The Replacements. Interesting. I'm surprised I haven't heard this album because I went through a huge... They're a punk band, right? I went through a huge punk phase for a long time. This is Fleet Foxes self-titled. I adore Fleet Foxes. They are one of my favorite bands, probably top 5 at this point. I love everything that they have done. They definitely have a clear top 2 to me, which would be Helplessness Blues and Crack Up. And this and their newer ones would be in the bottom half, but they have one of, if not the strongest starts to a music career that I've ever seen. And this album is really good in terms of atmosphere. It captures this idea of being out in the woods, experiencing nature, being connected, reflecting on your life very well. I listen to the song if it is sunny out and I'm driving very, very frequently. I would give this album an 8.5.
All right. Merriweather.
Merriweather is sensational. I know that In the Flowers is one of your favorite songs, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the best songs I've ever heard. I think that how it looks at just like fun versus like responsibility, if you will,
Yeah.
is really interesting, and I think that comes together really powerfully with the music and how some of its more triumphant sounding moments.
Yeah.
I love that
It's a very
song.
trippy song and a very trippy album. I love that song too. I love also Frightened. I think that song really drives home the point of comparison to Revolver that I mentioned earlier. I think that song sounds like it could have been on Revolver. I think that this album is better than Revolver, though. I think that the writing on it is stronger, and a lot of it is because it's 40 years newer, but I think that the production on it is stronger and is able to achieve that psychedelic atmosphere a bit better. But yeah, I love a lot of this. Also Frightened, In the Flowers, Same as You, Bluish.
Bluish is great.
So good, yeah. Some of my favorite Animal Collective songs overall. I would give this a 9.
I have no objections.
Cool. I have not heard this Neil Young album, or the next album, or the one after that. Bad stretch for me.
Never mind.
Nevermind is Nirvana at their most restricted. I know it's their most popular by far and one of the most popular albums ever. My problems with it really just come in that I think that to be mainstream, it had to be dumbed down a little bit. I think that it still has some really strong and some dark moments on it. Polly, definitely a really a really tough song.
Weird.
But I really like it. I actually think "Smells Like Teen Spirit" is a phenomenal song.
Yeah,
I know that's
it's
sort of a hot take because it's gotten to the point where it's so popular that it's hated, but I think it's phenomenal. I definitely prefer it to "Come As You Are." I know that's a popular debate in the Nirvana community.
I think it encapsulates that spirit really well, and it's kind of what we were talking about, like the baser.
Yeah, I agree. It really does sound like Teen Spirit, especially of the time. I think this album is still pretty strong, and the only reason I wouldn't rate it higher is because I know they can do better, and I wish I could have seen what Kurt would have done with a full-length music career, because I think he was one of the biggest geniuses of his time, and he is also one of my top 3 or 4 favorite singers ever. I would give this an 8.5. I don't know how you feel. I know you don't like Nirvana as me.
I was going to say 7.5 to 8.
Oh. Yeah, I would give this an 8.5. I think this album's really good. Want to compromise on an 8?
Sure.
We'll compromise on an 8.
Moving on to Death Consciousness.
Yep, Death Consciousness. Really great album. Not one of my personal favorites, especially for the vibe that it fills. I don't listen to this a whole ton when I'm feeling depressed as fuck, which is really what it's meant for. But I like it quite a lot. Blood, Hail, and Earth Mover especially. I'm a little down on this compared to what I had been in the past. I would probably still give it a 9, though.
All right.
That's what I'm feeling.
Mark, big Death Consciousness guy.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a Massive Attack. Yeah, I think this album's pretty good. It's surprising to me that this finds its place in this sort of mu-core type of list. It just doesn't sound like something that I would expect to be here. But I like it. I don't love it, though, and I've only listened to it once. So I would give it an 8.
All right.
I am not sure what the next album is. Do you know?
Nope.
Okay, so I guess we're putting in Haven't Heard.
Hunky Dory.
Hunky Dory?
Hunky Dory's sick.
Pretty fucking sick.
I think that it's like... I think Ziggy is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
But I think the sum of its parts is around this album. I think
Sure.
this is a little worse, but
Yeah.
it's got some really good tracks on here. I like the last track a lot. The Buckley Brothers.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the story of that one?
No, I'm not.
It's about his, I think, schizophrenic, like, half-brother or something,
Okay.
who killed himself.
Interesting.
And it's about, like, their relationship.
Huh.
And
Okay.
it's this weird, like,
That's
haunting
cool.
song. Very weird, but I think it's really good. But then there are some hits, like Changes,
Yeah.
Life on Mars. I think Life on Mars is a fantastic song.
It is, yeah. Beautiful song. Very well sung.
I'm feeling between 8.5 and a 9 on this one.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to leave it up to you to pick between those.
Well, I'm biased as fuck, so
I'll give it the 9. That's fine with me.
9. Funeral.
I don't like Funeral as much as you do, I believe, but I still like it a good bit.
Funeral's great. I mean, I haven't listened to it in a long time.
I just never really have that sense of desire to come back to it.
It's been a long time since I've heard it.
This was one of my sort of intro into this type of music albums.
Yeah, I think it's pretty accessible in terms of that.
Yeah, I really I like Wynn's voice a lot. I think the instrumentals on this are really good. There are parts of it that I just wish were different. Most notably, I believe it's Neighborhood 3, Powers Out.
I like that song.
I like the song, and it's one of the better songs in the album, but it starts off with this really hard, intense instrumental, and then it kicks in with this really high-pitched, like, clinky vocal passage that just does not fit that at all. And I remember hearing it the first time and listening to the opening instrumental, really hyped up, excited for the song, and then that just killed it for me. And that song's one of the bigger missed opportunities for me in music in general. I really wish that they went a different way with that one. But I'm between 8.5 and a 9 on this. I'll let you make the call.
I was also between 8.5 and 9.
Yeah,
I guess I'll keep flexing my bias.
I mean, my thing is, I think that all the 9s are better, probably, but I have no problem. But I also think it would be probably the best 8.5. So I really do think it's in the border there. You can stick it in whichever one you want. But
I'm biased. Let's do it.
Okay,
Give
that's
us a
fine.
9.
Cool. I have not heard the next album.
Neither have I. Now the best album of all time.
According to Rolling Stone, yes, This is the best album of all time.
I think I like this album a lot more than you do.
I think so too.
This album's pretty damn good.
Album's pretty good. I think he's got a really strong, soulful voice, talking about a lot of really relevant topics that have impact on a listener. I think it's a good album. I just think it's overrated in the sense that people call it the best album of all time.
Yeah.
I would give it an 8.5 personally.
I was between 8.5 and 9, so I guess we can call it an 8.5.
Okay, cool. I Love Supreme. I have this issue with rating jazz music in that I think that the compositions, the instrumentation on them are really well done a lot of the time, especially in these sort of ultra classic jazz records. Your Love Supremes, your Kind of Blues, your Bitches Brew, your Black Saint and Sinner Lady. Those type of albums, I think they're all phenomenally well done. It's just hard for me to evaluate them compared to an album that has sort of words as a structural basis for the feelings that I'm meant to be feeling. Yeah. With solely instrumental music, I find myself sort of latching on my own attachment to what the music is meant to mean or make me feel, and I'm not sure how I feel about that in terms of sort of rating art.
Yeah.
I guess if I was going to rank this, I'd be prone to just rank it as a jazz album or as a instrumentally based album.
I mean, we did rate Since I Left You.
Sure. So in that sense,
then how would you rate A Love Supreme as compared to that?
I'd give it a 9.
Okay. Because neither of them have.
Yeah, I think the album's excellent. I don't really have anything to channel what I'm meant to be feeling and thinking about for the music, which is something that's really important for me.
Yeah,
with music.
I just think the same criticism would apply to.
I think less so. I mean, Since I Left You has a lot of words, especially compared to A Love Supreme. I also think it's musically stronger too, which I'm sure there are some jazz purists who will shit on me for that. But
oh well.
69. I don't know why I'm blanking on what this is. I don't think I've heard this.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah.
Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
I really like this album.
So
I think this is a really strong indie album, sort of one of those core indie listens for somebody just getting into the genre. I think it's really great. Jesus Christ, etc. And what's the fucking first song? I'm Trying to Break Your Heart are definitely standouts, and some of the songs that got me into indie in the beginning of me listening to the genre.
I think it is a little inconsistent.
It's a little inconsistent.
I think those standouts are definitely
the standouts. I was going to give it an 8.5 personally. I don't know what you're feeling.
I was between 8 and 8.5, so
so we'll go with
give
that.
Give it the 8.5. This album's bad.
Yeah, this album's bad. It's bad.
I will never listen to Frownland. Like, I'm never gonna sit down and be like, I want to listen to Frownland.
Yeah, I don't.
That's not.
I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I do. I understand that they are pushing forward sort of what music can be, the boundaries of music.
Yeah.
But they're doing it in a way that sounds like shit.
But it does.
It sounds bad.
I mean, maybe I just haven't listened to it enough because, I didn't ever want to listen to it again. But it's not really going for a concept that would make it sounding bad make sense.
Yeah.
Other than just doing it for the sake of sounding weird.
Pushing musical boundaries. Yeah, I think that there's a point where pushing musical boundaries is great and can still lead to great music, but sometimes I think you're pushing musical boundaries just for the sake of pushing musical boundaries without actually making good music itself. And that's what I think this is. I want to put this in a 7 and below when I think it's below.
I definitely agree. One thing I think is interesting.
I don't like that album at all.
If you turn on Frownland,
Yeah.
and you have stereo and you have 2 headphones, if you take out one of your headphones, doesn't matter which one, it'll sound better.
Interesting.
My favorite is the right. The right track, the right audio channel is better than the left, but they're both better than combined.
Okay, interesting.
If you want to listen to Frownland in that way, it is interesting. Velvet Underground, Nico, self-titled. A much better and
a much better example of pushing forward the envelope. This is probably the most influential album ever.
Yeah, just about.
Just about. It's up there. If not number 1, it's 2 or 3. Love this album. Think it's fantastic. I do kind of think that the standouts are definitely the standouts on here.
Yeah. I think it is fairly consistent all the way through, though.
It is fairly consistent. Yeah. No. I definitely like every song on this album. I think this is an amazing album. I listen to this fairly regularly.
I'd be feeling a 9 on this one.
I was between a 9 and a 9.5 here. I'm fine with putting it in the 9.
All right.
We can put it as a 9, that's fine. I do think that it can be a little overrated because, again, people value influence more than I do.
Yeah.
And if you're going to value influence a lot, then, this should be one of your top tier albums.
Absolutely.
But I just don't really value influence that much.
Fair.
Okay. What do we got next?
We got a U-Stretch for a while.
Yeah, I haven't heard this album.
Okay, everybody.
I haven't heard the next album either. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I should check that album out. Close to the Edge. This is one I'll probably get hate for. I don't love this album. I don't really like drawn out progressive passages where I don't feel like a lot is being added in terms of feeling for the sake of just technically strong but not incredibly engaging instrumentals. I think this is a good album nonetheless, but I would want to give this an 8, whereas I know a lot of people think this is an all-time masterpiece. It's just, I guess it's just not my thing.
Fair enough. I don't really love long, drawn-out instrumentals either.
Yeah, and it is what it is. I think it has some interesting writing and ideas on it, which is why I'm putting it as an 8 and not lower, but yeah, I also don't listen to it all the time because it's not the type of music that befits me, but if you love this album and want to write an angry comment, please.
Go for it. I love getting comments.
I like
That's
it.
a side note. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah, I like getting comments. Comments are the best. Any comment you leave is appreciated. As long as it's not just, you're stupid for doing this. Like, give us a reason, please. If you want to say you're stupid because you gave Close to the Edge an 8 and give us an actual explanation that would encourage me to listen to it again instead of just thinking this guy's a dick, that'd be great.
That's great.
Yeah, that'd be great. I have not heard the next album or the one after that. I've heard every Rolling Stones album. I don't remember this one, but it's a Rolling Stones album, so I want to put it in 7 and below because fuck the Rolling Stones. Slowdive Slovaki album's pretty sick. I like this album a lot, mostly for the sound, but I think that their sort of emotions on this are really strong as well. I would want to give this an 8.5. I like it. Yeah.
Bitches Brew.
Bitches Brew to me is the best jazz album.
Fair.
It's so punchy, like eclectic, and amazingly well composed. Again, sort of looking at jazz music in a little bit of a different lens here than music with more lyrics to it. But I do think this is the best jazz album. It's pretty clear in my opinion, from what I've heard at least. I don't listen to that much jazz, mostly just the classics. But I would want to give this a 9.5. I adore this album. I listen to it very frequently.
We got the second row.
Yeah.
And are we getting more in the second row?
Yes, we are.
Hell yeah.
I fucking love The Devil and God Are Raging Inside of Me in terms of channeling sort of sadness and existential dread into being a cohesively strong project. This is one of the best examples in all of art, in my opinion. There are songs on here that just really hit you deep to the core, and it's a consistently great run all the way through.
Yep, I totally agree. You know how I just said I don't really like long, drawn-out instrumentals?
Yeah.
Love Welcome to Bangkok.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Welcome to Bangkok is super sick.
I think this is just
This has been climbing my favorite albums list, and now I have it insanely high.
This is like 90% of the emo rock I listen to.
Yeah, I love this album. I've been listening to this pretty much nonstop. I'm not depressed. I'm actually in like a pretty good mental state right now, like better than I usually am, and I'm just listening to this all the time.
It does hit a little different when you're depressed, though.
Oh, it definitely does,
It's a
yeah.
little different.
Milestone's probably my favorite. Like, I feel like complete hell about everything song.
Fair.
So-
I don't love that song too much, actually.
Yeah, I love that song. I don't know why. I definitely think that, like, Jesus Christ, Limousine, De Gausser, is that how you say it?
I have no idea how you say that.
Yeah, or
but I know what
better.
song you're talking about.
Yeah, or better. But I just really like Milestone for some reason.
I'd take Not the Sun as another
That's
standout.
fair. Yeah.
Ex-military?
Ex-military is cool, especially to see Death Grips in sort of a different style than what they end up becoming. I like this album a lot, but I don't think it's I think it's sort of the contrarian Death Grips fan pick for best Death Grips album. I don't see that. I think it's an 8.5 though. I think that Death Grips they're just immune to making bad music. I know there are a lot of people that think they sound like just ear rape.
I mean, they sound like blenders having sex.
Yeah, I understand that, but once you sort of get used to it, then
Yeah.
you can understand why people praise them the way they do. Spiderland. So
Spider-Man's pretty good.
yeah, Spiderland's pretty good. Spiderland is this really dark view of coming of age and regrets in life. I guess that really is it. It's a dark view of coming of age and regrets and trying to find a path that works for you when so little do. It has one of the strongest climaxes in all of music, especially from a narrative perspective. Yeah, narrative, conceptual basis with Good Morning Captain, which I would consider to be one of the best songs ever written and definitely one of the best performances ever.
Didn't he like throw up after recording that song?
Yeah, I believe his name is Brian McMahon. He was drenched in sweat, threw up, and went to the hospital after recording the song because it was just too much. Which I can see, because that song is evocative as fuck.
Fair.
This is a 10.
All right. No disagreements from me.
Yeah, this is a 10. That album is sensational.
Love the album.
Yeah. That is the alternate cover for Electric Ladyland is the next one, right? I believe that's what that is.
I believe so.
Yeah. Electric Ladyland is my preferred Jimi Hendrix record. I think that he's on his peak in terms of writing. I think that obviously his charisma and his guitar work are exceptional. He's just a great musician, and the flow of this album, the way it sort of blends together, is just really great. I like this album a lot. I would want to give it a 9. I don't know if you've heard it though, if you have any counter thoughts. I know you're not a huge Hendrix fan.
I'm not a huge Hendrix fan. I might have heard it a long time ago, but
You don't
it's
really
just
have
not something I
any-
really
yeah,
want to revisit.
yeah,
I
yeah.
probably would think lower of it, just
Sure.
based on my views on him in general, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you from an
Fair.
uninformed perspective.
Fair enough. That's a Boards of Canada record. I've been recommended that about 1 billion times, but I have never listened to it, so I haven't heard. That is another album that I've been recommended about 1 billion times and haven't listened to it. I have not heard the next album either.
Doors self-titled.
Doors Self-Titled
So sick.
It's so sick.
So
I'm
sick.
glad you like it. Okay, I'm glad you like it. I think that this is one of the best 60s albums. I think this is one of the best performances ever. I think this
he
has
has so much
charisma. I think that the style of this record is fantastic. It's passionately
weird.
enjoyable. It's weird. It's sort of boundary pushing in all the right ways.
Fair.
But the rating on it's still really good. I love this album to pieces. I'm between a 9 and a 9.5.
I would lean 9, but I'm fine with either if you have a stronger preference.
Yeah, I really like the Doors self-titled a lot. I would want to give it the 9.5, but if you think 9, that is fine.
No, that's fine. I like the album too.
Okay. You don't think that highly of it though? You would give it. Were you between 8.5 and a 9?
No. I was like 9.
Okay.
I think it's probably.
Do I think any album that we have as a 9 is better than it? I can see the argument for Death Consciousness, for The Velvet Underground and Nico, I'd probably take those as the top 2 in the 9 tier right now. If I listen to Astral Weeks a bit more, I could see myself thinking that one's higher. And I can appreciate the music fan who thinks that Born to Run is a better album as well. But I would say, yeah, I would take The Doors self-titled.
That's fair.
Oof. Throat was a mess right there.
Kind of blue.
Kind of blue. I do not love this album nearly as much as Bitches Brew. I definitely think that Bitches Brew is the defining Miles Davis album for me. I actually don't even know if Bitches Brew is in my top 3 favorites from Miles Davis. I like the album. I mean, Miles Davis is an all-time great musician. Obviously, he's probably, again, sort of looking at jazz in different respect than other music that is more vocally and lyrically based. But if you want to talk about somebody with an all-time great discography and arguably the best ever, I think that Miles Davis is one of those people. I would give this probably an 8. I'm not in love with this record. I definitely prefer other Miles Davis albums. Bitches Brew and Get Up With It would definitely be my ones that I return to the most.
Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Album's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Album's pretty good. I think it has some strong writing. I think I do prefer Graceland, but it's a strong album. Between 8 and 8.5 for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if you have any more detailed thoughts than that, but
Not really. I think it's one of those albums, kind of like Rumors, which is coming up at some point, where it's like, if you haven't heard the album, you actually have heard the album.
yeah, yes, exactly. Yeah, you've definitely heard the album. It's hard to escape most of the songs on here. They're just all-time classics. Yeah, I really like the album.
I would probably lean 8, but I could go 8.5.
I'm fine with either. Your call.
Let's be a little harsh for whatever reason, since we're
Just 'cause
about
the
to
next
give a
one's-
9.5.
Yes, we are about to. We're about to give a 9.5.
Hell yeah.
Kate Bush, Hounds of Love. This is one of the best albums ever made, just to be quite frank. This album is excellent. I listened to this for the first time. I think I told the same story in a Rolling Stone video.
I think you did, but that's fine.
That's fine. I listened to this album for the first time. The first second I heard her kick in singing, I knew immediately that the album was going to be top tier. At the time, my 10s were a little more lenient, so I texted Scott immediately saying that this was going to be a 10.
Oh, you texted me before you even finished the album.
No, Scott, I text you as soon as she says it doesn't hurt me. That's when I text
I
you.
listened to it very shortly after that text.
Yeah.
We might have been listening to it for the first time at the same time.
Oh yeah,
That's kinda fun.
as soon as I heard the production work that she was doing on Running Up That Hill and her vocals kick in, I knew immediately that this was going to be, at the time and maybe still, the best pop album I've ever heard.
And see, it's kind of nuts because Running Up That Hill is fantastic, obviously, and then she delivers a couple more pop songs, and they're all great.
Yeah.
And then she kicks off the second half of the album, which is this amazing concept album, which you probably weren't expecting going into the album.
Album is
fantastic.
sensational. Yeah, I really love it. I'm high on it at the moment too.
Oh, it's so good.
I think that it is probably one of the best, if not the best, album that we have in the 9.5 tier at the moment.
I think it's competing against OK Computer for me.
I would take it over. Just to let you know how high I am on Devil and God right now, it's competing with Devil and God for me.
Whoa. I don't hate that take, Mark.
And Skinny Fist.
I don't hate that take.
Yeah, and Skinny Fist.
Fair. It is fantastic.
But all those are sort of that borderline top 10 album status for me. Really love all of them. Next album I have not heard.
Okay.
The other one that I've heard every REM album, but I don't remember listening to this one specifically. I listened to every REM album when I was like 17. I'm about to be 24, so it's been a while.
Okay.
So I don't have anything to say about that. Spiritualized, I have not heard this.
Okay.
And that one I haven't heard.
Have you heard this one? Because I thought this was the REM album, and then we had this one.
Oh, I said I hadn't heard that already.
Okay.
Yeah. Black Saint Sinner Lady. This is sort of the... I don't know how to phrase this properly. I don't want to say pretentious, but like person who's like really into like high art type of music. This is generally their pick for the best album of all time, which I can appreciate and I understand their perspective. I think it's probably the second best jazz album that I've heard. So I would be inclined to put it not quite as high as Bitches Brew, but on the tier below. So I would give this a 9. Cool. I think it's very consistent though. I like all of the songs on it. I think there's only 4.
Loveless. I actually hate this album when I first listened to it. I do enjoy
I don't
it
really know
now.
how to feel about this album because I feel like the lyrics are kind of nonsense, but that's not really the point of shoegaze either.
See, I think
like
the
I almost
lyrics-
want to look at this in a similar vein as I do jazz.
See, what's interesting is I think the lyrics do provide like some sort of guidance.
Some sort of maybe like
It's kind of like how you view Skinny Fist, where it's like there's a couple lyrics here and there, and then that gives it guidance for the.
well, I think
instrumentals.
Skinny Fist has a very clearly defined concept and topics that these songs are about. With Loveless, I feel like it's more like
I was gonna say
up
not as much.
putting up bumpers in a bowling lane.
Fair.
You're going down the right lane. You can't go into the gutter or off into a different lane, but you don't really know what you're going to hit.
I think it is trying to deliver an emotion, and
Yeah.
it does do that fairly well.
Yeah.
I used to listen to this album a lot when doing cardio.
Same for whatever
Because
reason.
nothing really matches that hopelessness quite as well.
Yes, of course, yeah.
It has enough energy to keep you through cardio.
Yeah.
But it does give you that hopelessness that you feel while exercising.
Yeah. I don't really know where to put this.
I have no idea.
I've always been of the mind that it's overrated, but like also not. I also love the album.
See, I'm between an 8 and a 9 on this one.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, kind of. John, just throw out an 8.5. Call
Sure.
It a day. Yeah, let's call it a day. Split the difference. I don't know how to pronounce this. Like F flat, A infinity, something.
This is
A
the-
sharp.
this is the other
This is the
Godspeed
other
album.
highly acclaimed Godspeed You Black Emperor album. Dead Flag Blues, the kickoff track on this is sensational. Would be one of the better tracks on Skinny Fists. Really like this album a lot, although not as much as Skinny Fists. I would give this a 9. But I do think that the albums kind of go together in terms of concept. I think this is sort of a precursor for Skinny Fists, almost similar to a OK Computer into Kid A type of deal. So I don't know if you ever listened to the album, but I'd recommend it.
I'm not. I will have to, though. Jeff Buckley.
Jeff Buckley, Grace. I adore this album to no end. This album is amazing. I talk about how I like Yeast so much for its depiction of human connections and like what love means and stuff like that. I think this is probably the second best record to talk about those topics. And as I just published my top 5 singers, in terms of my favorites, Jeff Buckley was in my top 5. I adore this record to no end. I would give it a 9.5.
All right.
I know you disagree with me, but I think that his version of Hallelujah is more obviously better than Cohen's than Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower is better than Dylan's. I think that is a more obvious take. I know you disagree with me, but
I do disagree.
yeah.
See, I do agree that it's a wider difference, though.
Yeah, no.
Hey.
Big Black Songs About Fucking. Yeah, I have not heard that.
Neither have I.
I have not heard the next album either. American Football. If you want another emo record that is excellent, I would recommend this. I don't think it's quite as good as Devil and God, but I'd probably give this a 9.
All right.
Yeah.
Third row.
This is sort of the second pick of the Mew core for the genre, so if that makes sense, seeing that here. Sufjan Stevens, Karen Lowell. What? Oh, did we miss something? Oh, weird. Because I have the albums up on my phone so I can see them better, and I don't have that. I can't see what this is.
I don't know what it is either.
I have no idea what that is, so
Cool.
just
Karen Lowell.
Karen Lowell, I usually like it more. I think that it's telling an interesting story with like him going through loss, him dealing with all of these negative emotions. I'm not the biggest Sufjan Stevens fan, and I don't like it as much as Illinois. I don't really see the perspective people have when they say this is one of the best written albums ever. I would want to give this an 8, honestly. I am very down on this record, and yeah, I can understand if it sparks those really powerful feelings in other people. I can see this as an album that does that, but it doesn't do it for me really at all. So it's hard for me to effectively judge that. So maybe my perspective is poor on that album. I can understand if somebody were to think that, but yeah. Okay, next album. See, yeah, we're looking at different things here because now you have Leonard Cohen up. And that album is pretty fucking great, to be honest. Again, not as good as Grace by Jeff Buckley, but that's because their Hallelujah songs are nowhere near as good. I would give that one a 9. I think that he is one of the better songwriters that I've listened to.
Fair enough.
And then I don't know what this next album is.
Neither do
I
I.
don't think. Yeah.
Is this it?
Is this it? Really like Is This It? Fun album. I think that it was sort of the last like great rock album in a weird way,
Fair enough.
where the Strokes were sort of pushed into this position as needing to be the leader of rock. And that was a mantle that they couldn't really carry because you have this New York rock band that's ultra popular with Last Night is their big hit. That's the defining moment for New York rock at the time. And they weren't really able to carry that going forward in terms of sort of radio production. But I like the album a lot. I don't think it's as amazing as other people do, though. I think that a lot of the writing is kind of nonsense. But I do think Hard to Explain is an incredible song.
I agree. This album came out before Elephant, right? By the White Stripes?
Yes.
Okay. Because I feel like they kind of
Yeah,
picked up
fair,
that mantle.
fair. You're right. You're right. Yeah. But
Well-
that's different. Jack White's a little more out there.
He's a little out there, but I think what this album was doing was it was taking some older styles and then bringing them
Yeah.
into something that was going to get some radio play nowadays. And I think Elephant did the same thing with
Sure.
perhaps even older styles,
Yeah.
and especially with how that album was produced. I don't love the album. I'm not like
Yeah.
really into it, but I think that I wouldn't necessarily blame them for the death of rock or anything. I
Sure,
think there
sure.
were still people after them doing
Yep.
some of the things. You said 8.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know what that is.
Neither do I. The Mollusk is so weird. It is. I don't know if I'd rate it super highly, but I can totally understand someone wanting to. It's very intriguing. Every song on that thing just sounds different. The lyrics are weird. It's just an odd, just engaging album, just in how strange it is.
Yeah.
I love the album, but like I probably wouldn't give it above an 8.
Sure.
I like it though. Big fan.
Fair.
all I
Yeah.
got.
Love Forever Changes albums. Really good. I remember seeing, I think it was Danny Brown, say this was his favorite album of all time, which I thought was really interesting. And I believe that album came out in the 60s, right? Yeah, it came out in 67. I think the album's really good. I don't know if I have a whole ton of interesting stuff to say about it. I've only heard it a couple times, but I would give it an 8.5 off of what I've heard.
All right.
I've actually only heard this album once as well, and I'm forgetting the name of it. I know this is a crazy popular album, but I listened to it once and I can't even remember the title of it, so I don't even want to read it because I don't have any sort of informed basis to.
Fair. I haven't heard them.
Yeah. The Stone Roses. This album I listened to for the first time fairly recently. I want to say probably 2 months ago. I liked it, but not as much as I was really hoping to. I didn't find anything all that interesting about it. I thought it was more or less just a good rock album.
Fair.
I would probably give it an 8. I would compare it to Is This It in terms of quality.
All right. You love this album, don't you?
I do. This is my favorite Eno record. I think this album is incredibly well made, and it...
Well, Eno made it, so
Yeah,
obviously.
Eno is kind of a god in terms of production, sort of layering music, but I don't think that it really has any sort of substance to it. And maybe I'm missing something here, but the album is really pretty and atmospheric nonsense. So I don't really know how highly I would rate it. What I want to do is sort of compare it to jazz, where I think that it is much more about the feel and the sounds and the composition than it is about being sort of more of a standard album. And I would want to give it either an 8.5 or a 9. But yeah, I just want to have that grain of salt there of this is why I'm rating it like this, because I think that if I felt like this album was trying to go for any sort of rating basis, then I would rate it much lower because I think the rating is kind of nonsense.
Which one are you taking?
You can run a 9.
All
'Cause
right.
I do love the album. I have it on vinyl. I'm a big fan. I just think it's kind of nonsense.
Fair. I haven't heard this album.
I have not heard that
Fair.
album either. Lonerism. Interesting.
I think this is the best Tame Impala album.
I think it's the best Tame Impala album, but I don't think that's that high of a bar.
I don't really love that.
I don't really
too
love
much.
Tame Impala.
Yeah.
I would want to give this a 7.5.
That's fair.
I don't. Yeah.
I like Apocalypse Dreams though. That's a good song.
Yeah. Sure.
Rumors. If you haven't heard this album, you actually have heard this album.
You have, yes. This album has some of the all-time biggest hits ever.
Yeah.
I like Rumors a lot. I think it's a really interesting story with sort of these
Like,
relationships crumbling down. You have one member like fucking the technical staff and writing a song about how she was I don't remember if it was one of the men or one of the women in the band, but
I believe what was going on was Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham
Yes,
were
were-
on and again, off again,
Yeah.
just constantly. And then I forgot their names, but there was a married couple who were in the
Yes.
process of divorcing.
yes.
And then the drummer, I think, was also cheating on his wife with someone else.
Nice.
Like a
Yeah.
technical
Yeah.
staff or
There was
something.
just a whole bunch of mess.
It was a mess. It's
Yeah, this
amazing
is-
that this album got made.
It is incredible that this album got
And
made.
it's
there was
still
so
good.
much drama, and this is one of the all-time best-selling albums. It's probably a top 10 best-selling album ever.
Yeah.
I really like it a lot, though.
Yeah,
I would
it's
probably
super
give it
cool.
an 8.5, maybe a 9.
Okay, I was
okay.
thinking 8, but I'm fine
go with an 8.5, yeah.
All right. Abbey Road. This album's gibberish.
Yeah,
I
this
love
is weird.
the album.
I love this album. It sounds amazing. I know every single word to it very
Absolutely.
clearly.
So do I.
I've heard it at least 50 times all the way through. At least.
Probably more, yeah.
Probably more. I've been listening to it since I was a fetus. It's gibberish. It's
I mean, at least
about
for the second
nothing.
half,
It's literally it's about
I mean, I
nothing.
think something's good.
It is gibberish. Yeah, something's good, but it's not really anything special.
No,
in
it's
terms
not
of
anything
the idea it's
special.
presenting. There's most albums on here that we have as a 9 or higher have a song about love that is better than something.
Most songs that are 9 or higher.
Yes. Honestly, King of Carrot Flowers Part 1 is better than something.
I mean, yeah. But
Sawdust and Diamonds is better than something.
I think Sawdust and Diamonds' best song of all time. Second best song. Sorry, Only Skin's obviously the best.
Wow.
No, we don't have to go through it
Yeah,
all.
we don't have to go through, but yeah, I want to give this a 7.5.
Fair enough.
Were you gonna say 7 and below?
I was gonna say 7.5 to 8.
Okay, yeah, I want to give it a 7.5. I just, it's about nothing.
I
and
wish it
it's
was about
I wish
something.
it was about something.
I
but
think I
it's
said
just-
this in the Rolling Stone video too, but
Yeah.
that last line of the medley where it's like, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. Like,
yeah.
if that was the last line of an album that was leading up to that, that would be really interesting.
It just isn't. It just
isn't.
comes
It's
out of nowhere.
It comes through the bathroom window.
Yeah, but if you rate music solely based on enjoyment and sounding good to you, I can understand why you think that's an all-time great album.
Fair. Moving on.
Let's see. What do we have next here? I have not heard the next album,
Neither have I.
or the one after that,
Neither have I.
or the one after that.
Neither have I. Are you experienced?
Are you experienced? I like this album, but less so than Electric Ladyland. I think that Electric Ladyland is sort of the in utero to Jimi Hendrix Experience's Nevermind.
Fair enough.
I think this is more commercial and loses a bit in the sense that it's more commercial.
Maybe I'll have to re-listen to Electric Ladyland then, because I have heard this album recently, and that was
Yeah.
where a lot of my Jimi Hendrix opinions were coming
Definitely prefer Electric Ladyland.
from. This
I
album's
would-
fun, though.
It's fun. I would want to give this an 8.
Okay, I was between
And I gave
7.5
Electric
and 8.
Ladyland a 9, right?
Something like that.
I would think they'd be about 2 tiers apart. Yeah.
Fair.
So Scott, if you want to listen to a stronger Jimi Hendrix album, I would recommend Electric Ladyland.
Fair.
Soft Bulletin. This album is really excellent. I think that they are a phenomenal. I guess they categorize as indie band with really strong writing. I like this album quite a bit. I would give it a 9. Oh, we're gonna have a run of 9s here, I think.
We have a lot of 9s now.
I know. Well, we are going through a bunch of really top tier albums.
Very fair.
Turn on the Bright Lights. Adore this album.
This album's fun. I think.
I don't think I'm gonna give this one a 9 though. I think it's more of an 8.5.
Okay, I was between 8, 8.5.
Yeah, I really like this album. There's a lot of songs that are very personally meaningful to me on this, but I think it's pretty damn strong throughout. And that is sort of I guess it blends indie and standard rock a little bit, but that was one of the New York sort of, not falling from grace of rock is the dominant genre, but yeah, falling from grace of rock is the dominant genre. One of the last few standouts is that it fizzled out. But yeah, love Turn on the Bright Lights. I think 8.5 is deserving.
Fair.
Andrew Jackson Jihad, People Who Eat People, or the luckiest people of all. Probably messed up at least one word here, but yeah, I think the singing on this is, on a technical perspective, is terrible. But I don't care, because I just don't value technically good singing at all. I think the writing on this is interesting. It's edgy, but in a way that I like.
Fair enough.
I think the album's really cool. I listened to it multiple times in a row. The first time I listened to it, I think it's consistently entertaining, has some strong ideas on it, and yeah, it's probably one of my favorite indie albums. I would give this a 9. Have you listened to it?
I have not.
Okay. The Mars Volta, yeah, just all around strong album. I really don't have anything deeper to say. Just it does everything well. I would give this an 8.5.
All right. Joy Division.
I am not the biggest Joy Division fan. I like this album. I think it's overrated, but again, it's one of those. I think it's overrated in the perspective that it's an all-time great classic.
Yeah.
In most people's eyes. Have you listened to this album?
I have not.
I really wish you had. I'd be curious of your thoughts on it. Yeah, I like the album. I think that its standout tracks are better than its sort of deeper cuts. I do like Disorder more than any other song on the album. I'm a normie, but
yeah,
I mean, it's still a good album. I would give it an 8.5.
Right.
Let's see here. Have not heard the next album.
Neither have I. I mean, you've heard one song on it, but
Yeah.
Low.
Low.
So speaking of long drawn out instrumentals that I like,
Yes.
the second half of this album.
Yes. I like Low quite a good bit, though. I think that the production on it is absolutely mesmerizing. I think that when Bowie is writing on this, it's really strong.
Yep.
Going through his sort of cocaine addiction, like lust for love type of ordeal that he has at the moment.
It is odd.
I'm sure you have deeper thoughts on this than I do, since you're the Bowie guy here, but
I don't think I do.
I know this isn't one of your preferred Bowie albums.
No, it's not. I think it's overshadowed by Station to Station that came before it.
Yeah, I definitely agree that Station to Station is a better album.
I think it's
I think
weird
this
that-
one's better musically, though. I guess it's reasonable to say. I would want to give this a 9.
I have no problems with that.
Yeah.
No,
Did you thought I was going to give it a higher score?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I would want to give it a 9.
I think it's comparable to Hunky Dory. Hunky Dory is my preferred album between the two.
Yeah,
but
I prefer Low, but I think that they are pretty comparable.
Like the 5th best album of all time, you think? Is that right?
What, Songs of Key of Life?
Yeah.
According to Rolling Stone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 5.
Yeah, somewhere around 5. I'm not the biggest Stevie Wonder fan.
It's a fun album.
It's a fun album, but it's more fun, accessibility, strong singing, easy to listen to music. I think that it probably does connect with people. Those people just aren't necessarily me.
Fair.
I think it's a good album, though. I'd want to give it an 8.5.
No problems with that.
Pinkerton, I mean, we gave Blue Album, what did we give Blue Album?
7 below.
And Pinkerton is worse. Like, significantly worse. Pinkerton is sort of a... Yeah, nah. I don't really want to get into it, but I don't like Pinkerton.
Because I
don't like
not
Pinkerton.
heard the best things about it.
It does have a reputation as being the flagship incel album.
Yeah, so I have not dipped my toes in there.
Yeah, it's not for me. Free Will and Bob
No,
Dylan.
this might be for you.
This is definitely for me. I love this album. This is one of my preferred Dylan records. I think that he's at his, maybe angstiest would be the right word to use here, but his most fed up with politics and the establishment. This is his most protesty album in terms of overall social structure. I think the times they are changing is maybe more protesty, but in a focused lens. I love this album to pieces. I'm between a 9 and a 9.5 here. I'm going to go against my bias and give it a 9. Have you heard this?
I have, but I'm not as big of a Dylan guy as you. Have only heard it like once or twice, so
Okay.
I don't necessarily think I have an informed perspective, especially when it comes to his writing.
Yeah, because you do kind of need to dig into his writing to have sort of a good perspective on his music.
Now we might get to some disagreement. So, Mr. Rap Thought World, Mad Villainy has no emotional depth.
Yes, I am aware. For me, yeah, I think that critique is valid, and that's something people are gonna make, especially on internet circles such as this. This is one of the top 2 or 3 most acclaimed rap albums out there. This is my 2nd or 3rd favorite rap album. I love it to pieces. I think it's excellent. I think in every way besides like emotion, Emotion and concept, this is the best rap album out there. I think that it is one of, if not the best produced rap albums of all time. I think it is the best rapped album of all time. I think the way that those two things blend together is the best of all time. I think the aesthetic, the atmosphere, everything about it is sensational. I would be between a 9 and a 9.5 on it, but I know that you think that it's nonsense and want to rate it low.
I'm between 7.5 and an 8. I do like the album.
Yeah, I know that you have this hot take with Mad Villainy.
I think I'd probably lean 8 because I don't think it's as nonsense as Abbey Road. Like, I think it does have, like, this overall concept. I just don't think it's executed all that well or very explicitly. I think songs like Curls are really good.
Yeah.
In terms of concept.
I definitely think that they could have done a better job in terms of executing ideas. I do think that there are some interesting ideas that can have an impact if you are really digging at them.
If you're projecting some of your own ideas onto it, sure.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. If I were to give this a specific numerical score, I would give it a 9.4. So I don't really know how we're going to do this, because you want to give it an 8.
Yeah.
So that means we're kind of between 8.5 and 9. Do you want to give it a 9 so we get less hate?
Sure.
Yeah, groan at me, Scott. That's fine. Oh, the album's so goddamn good.
Well, you can just...
It is technical perfection. No.
All right, on to The Queen is Dead.
Yeah, well...
See, like, it's just not as good as any of these albums.
Sure it is.
No, it's not.
Sure it is.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, you're not.
Let's talk about an album you like a lot now.
The Queen is Dead, one of my favorite albums ever.
The Queen is Dead is
It's
excellent.
fantastic.
First off, fuck Morrissey, but
Yeah, sure.
but his voice is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this album is sensational all the way through.
Absolutely.
One of, if not the best album that doesn't have really a concrete, straightforward narrative.
I don't think it has a narrative, but I think it is sort of linked as some sort of dark coming of age. Not
It is,
necessarily as
yes,
dark
definitely,
as Spider-Land, but
Yeah.
like the title, The Queen is Dead, like
Yes.
sort of from being lonely on a limb.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic. I think it's consistent all the way through. I think I Know It's Over is one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yeah, I Know It's Over is one of the best songs
I
from
think
the
it has this
80s, for sure.
Weird idea of like picking apart your own strange superiority complex.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's great. Love it. Performances are great. I think 9.5.
Yeah, 9.5. Definitely. One of the better 9.5s on here, too, I would say. Like, top 4-ish of them, I would want to say.
Fair.
I really like that album a lot. The Ramones, I hate the Ramones. I think that they are just a bastardization of punk. They're a bastardization of punk, especially on this album. I don't like their music in any way, shape, or form. I want to give it a 7 and below, and it is a below.
So,
I don't like the album.
do you prefer Trout Mouse Replica? It is music.
No.
Okay.
No. At least with
Small
Trout Mouse
Ramones,
Replica, I get to listen and try to figure out why people like it. With the Ramones, I just know that it's bad. I hate the Ramones.
I'm fine with the Ramones. I probably would still put in that tier, but that's fine.
I actually haven't heard this album, which I know is bad because it's a massive legacy of an album, but I just haven't heard it. I'm sorry. Blue by Joni Mitchell. This was 3rd on Rolling Stone's list. I listened to this album for the first time probably 6 months ago, towards the beginning of the pandemic. I really, really enjoyed it. I think that she gave a sensational performance. I think that she does a really good job of capturing her emotions and going through the sort of depression that she's in. I think this album's a 9, and it is one of the stronger 9s. I really like that album a lot.
Alright.
I don't know. I don't know what that album is.
Neither do I.
Yep. I don't know what the next album is either.
Neither do I.
Or the one after that.
Neither do I.
The Downward Spiral is a great album. It is sort of the core of what people think about when they think of the 90s. It's almost like a Nirvana record that's more not tailored and has writing that is more direct in its intent. I like the album quite a bit. I think that it's a 9.
Alright.
Sure. Tago Mago by Can.
The first time I listened to this, I was confused. And then I reached out to some people to try to understand it a bit more because it's a krautrock album, I believe, from Germany. So it doesn't have that much of a mass appeal or that much writing on it. But in digging into it more, I came up with a pretty cohesive story of this album, which is essentially about this apocalyptic tale and dissecting sort of the emotions and events that this character is going through in that. Hallelujah on this album is one of the most unique and interesting songs I have ever listened to. Probably one of the better songs that I've listened to, too. I'm between a 9 and a 9.5 here, and I kind of want to just look at what we have as 9s and 9.5 and make a decision. Interesting. This is sort of one of the, like I was saying with Black Saint Sinner Lady, this is sort of the pretentious music fans' darling. So I guess just to go against that a little bit, I'll give it a 9.
Yeah. Fuck the album for its fan base.
Yeah. People who like this album listen to a lot of music I haven't heard of, so I'm going to rate it lower.
Yeah.
I have not heard the next album. This album is really cool, unique, and interesting. I've been saying that a lot, but...
I mean, that's fair. It is a collection of albums that do stand out in some way.
Yeah. This was an album that immediately was brought up to me when I started listening to sort of this type of music, and I didn't listen to it for a long time, and I finally did, and it's really fucking cool. I like the sound of this album quite a bit. I like the writing style a lot, and this is an album where if I'm going to listen to it, I listen to the whole album. I don't generally turn on one song from it. It is a listen to the whole thing in one sitting type of piece for me. I want to give it a 9.
All right.
I have no idea how the hell to pronounce the name. It's like Agitus Björn or something like that. No idea.
Sure.
I don't know what the next album is, or the one after that. And now we have 2 albums that I can talk about quite extensively.
Fair.
Twin Fantasy. I don't know which version this is. I don't know how much I think it matters. I love this album. This album is incredibly well done. It's an interesting idea. You have Will Toledo, who is singing about a man that he's in love with, and it's an unrequited love tale, and him dealing with his feelings of that. It's this obsessive and self-deprecating story, and it has a lot of really interesting musical motifs on it. Bodies is the song that I find myself returning to the most. It is so fun, this sort of electronica instrumental build with these really heartbreaking lyrics. Beach Life House in Death. I don't remember specifically what the title is, but that is one of the better written songs that I've heard, just in general, for music. This is one of the, I don't know if I want to say it's a Mount Rushmore indie album, but it's pretty damn close to that, if not. I'm between a 9 and a 9.5 here. I think that I want to go 9.
All right.
Yeah, I want to go 9 here, but I like that album quite a bit. Have no problem with bumping it up to a 9.5.
To Pimp a Butterfly.
It's a Pimp a Butterfly, so this
7.
is, so this is by far the best rap album ever made, in my opinion. Yours as well, I believe. Yeah. So when we were comparing earlier Dark Fantasy to this, I believe, as you do too, that this album covers everything emotionally and conceptually that Dark Fantasy does by its first half and in a more compelling way. I think the comparisons are fairly clear there. It would be obviously Wesley's theory to Dark Fantasy in terms of these characters' optimistic look into fame going into it, having this braggadocious persona that is then quickly stripped down.
Gorgeous to King Kunta,
where you see this sort of arrogant caricature of wanting to make a difference, but still also being very self-aggrandized, but still covering social topics that are interesting. Power to You.
I was going to run away for you, but
Power. No. Oh yeah, that's what it was. I was having this conversation the other day. I was trying to remember what I said. I did specifically say Power and Runaway combined make up You.
Fair. I can see that.
Power and Runaway combined to make up You. And then after that, we see this sort of relapse for Kanye, and I'm not really sure what the conclusion of Dark Fantasy is. And
I'd say Lost in the World to All Right.
Okay, interesting. I didn't think that far, but
It's this, It's both of them sort of thinking, and I'll combine Who Will Survive in America with Lost in the World. It's both of them. They take a look at some social issues right at the end, and then they say, okay, I just hit my lowest point. I'm going to try to move on.
Yeah.
And then Kanye just ends it there.
And Kanye ends it there.
And then
he
Kendrick
does do this on other albums, but it's not in My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
And then Kendrick goes and
much further,
and it's fantastic. And it sets itself apart.
What I really love about...
Even if it ended out all right, I'd still rate it higher than Dark Fantasy.
Yeah, and I would as well. And I think that what stuck out to me about this album pretty immediately, and we're really beating a dead horse and praising this album, even it's pretty unanimously considered album of the decade by most people on the internet. Not unanimously, but if we were to poll the general populace, 80% of people would call this album of the decade. I like that it talks about these core themes of what hip-hop music is. Sort of identity, especially as a black person in America, dealing with racism, wanting to find ways to overcome this oppressive social structure, as well as the fame narrative. And what To Pimp a Butterfly does differently than other albums is the halfway point. And the next half of the album not only says that these are issues, but sort of offers a solution. And you see Kendrick pushing forward to try to become a leader in his community, where he's talking about these ideas that are potential solutions and a way to move forward for the community that he feels that he's a part of. And it comes off extremely strong and emotional. And by the closing track, you are really just left with a different perspective on things, on Kendrick Lamar as a person, and for me, hip-hop music.
I think it's also truly inspiring how his relationship to that community and to those problems and becoming a leader especially, has led to some sort of sense of self-actualization within him.
Yes.
So I just think it's inspiring all around. I'm left with so many emotions after finishing this album. Anytime it's beautiful. I don't have much.
Yeah, and it's just amazingly listenable and well produced. One of the best produced rap albums ever. I love that it cycles through these different styles of black music.
Especially relating to the concept and going back to how that community has affected him, and it's fantastic. His community has affected him.
Yeah, so I think that album certainly belongs up there with the other 10s that we have on the board. I actually have 6 10s at the moment, not 5. So later notice, we will find out what that 6th 10 is. But that's it in terms of this tier list.
Figure it out.
They can probably figure it out. But that's it in terms of this tier list. I think this went pretty well, and these are a lot of great albums, some of which I don't really get the chance to talk about all that much. So even ones that I brushed over because maybe I've only heard once or twice, at least giving some brief thoughts on them was pretty cool. And I hope that anyone who listened to the end enjoyed the video. Please drop a comment, let us know what you think. Give us maybe your argument for an album that should have been placed higher or lower, and definitely drop a like. It helps us out a lot in getting this channel off the ground. It's much appreciated to anyone who drops a like.
What I find is kind of interesting in this tier list, we're normally distributed around 9.1, 9.2.
Yeah.
We got a nice little bell curve.
Yeah, you're right. We do. We really do have a bell curve here. I think that... Yeah. No, do we have the exact same amount of 7 and below as 10? No, we don't. We have one less 7 and below. But...
No, that's...
Oh, no, never mind. 7... Okay, sure.
Yeah, but that covering from 7 to 0.
Yes. Okay, we do have a bell curve, and it is skewed a little bit, right? Towards the higher end of the scale.
Yeah,
but that makes sense because we're talking about some of the best albums ever.
Yeah, we're like... But it's weird that we kind of average out to like a 9.2. So
yeah,
the list is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, these are 200 albums, and
the average is about a 9.2.
Yeah, I mean, these are 200 sensational albums. So all of these have something that's worth listening to, for sure.
Absolutely.
So check them out. Again, let us know your thoughts. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, or if you just want to help out the channel. And see you in the next video.
All right.